Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions, and while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have another song for you guys today. We are doing a bonus track off of the deluxe CD issue of High and Mighty. We're down to the last two songs. So before we go through the midweek break, we'll be finishing up High and Mighty. Wow, this album has been so fun to do. There were some songs I didn't know, some songs I didn't know very well, and some songs I knew really well. Had some great guests on. It's been a great season, and I'm really excited to bring you the last couple of songs. But before we get to that, it is Monday, and as those of you who have been following the show for a while or from the beginning know that I use Monday to do my thank list for everyone instead of doing it every episode, because that would really kind of be a lot for people to listen to. So I just reserve it for Mondays. And there are some wonderful people out there who have made a huge difference in me getting the show off the ground and continuing it. First and foremost, of course, thank you to Uriah Heep for allowing me to do this show. Would not be doing this without your endorsement, and it means the world to me, because I have had so much fun doing the show, going over everything you've recorded. That we've got a long way to go yet. We're not even halfway there yet, but everything so far, it's been just a blast, and I've loved discovering things that I hadn't heard before, loved digging into songs that I didn't really know, and love really finding things in songs that I thought I knew everything about. So it's just been a great joy for me. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. I want to thank some people, first and foremost, our patrons of the show. At the $5 Easy Living tier, we have Kenny Wymore. Thank you, Kenny. At the $3 The Wizard tier, we have Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, and Frank Thielgaard Mortensen. Thank you, gentlemen. And at the $1 Traveler in Time tier, the one who can hold his breath underwater forever, the unbelievable Airtight Gravesite. Thank you all for your donations to the show. You actually help me cover all of the monthly costs of the hosting of the show. So that means a lot to me. Greatly appreciated. It really means a lot that, I put something out there that people enjoy enough to want to help out, instead of just listening and enjoying the show that way, that it means enough to actually give back a little bit. So thank you guys. Thank you also everyone who has left feedback on the episodes, who has rated on Apple Podcasts. It's been a great joy. And I want to thank also to Nate for telling me about the plugin that makes the whole Apple Podcast finding reviews things easier. Nate over at the Deep Purple Podcast, of course. Speaking of the Deep Purple Podcast, how about Nate and John at the Deep Purple Podcast, who deliver an amazing deep dive into a new album or an interesting topic every week? They've been so creative with the things that they've covered. I'm just like, here, we're going to do a song and a song and a song. And they're like, we're going to do when Roger Glover was on MTV. Just a really brilliant, creative team those guys are. And I love their show. They're actually the ones that introduced me to the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Also, the Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered, Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the Other Side, Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Paul, Joe, and David at the Lap of the Pods Queen Podcast, and our newest Deep Dive brothers, Andy and Matt, at Hawk Binge, the Hawkwind Podcast, a band I knew absolutely nothing about, didn't even know they existed until I found out that these guys were joining our network. And I've listened to a couple of their episodes. They're really good. They have a great banter back and forth. One of them knows the band very well. One of them knows very little about the band. So it's a really interesting couple of angles and perspectives that you get on this band. and I'm looking forward to checking out more. But they've got a great show so far. And of course, my buddy Brandon over at Metallicast, my favorite Metallica podcast. And, you got to check out Ace on Music over on Stitcher and YouTube. He is the band's manager, has some really amazing info about the music business. He's seen so much, and he talks about a lot of stuff. So go check that out. And of course, our friend Allegra at gottahear'emall.com, digging into some very interesting topics in the music industry. Go check out all those things, folks. They're absolutely wonderful. I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Scott Lazinski for the amazing logo he did for the show. Audionamics, I love you guys. Would not do a podcast without IDC, Instant Dialogue Cleaner. And good morning to Dave White, who's listening to this at probably a little after 4 a.m. In hopefully no longer snowy Ohio. And he is the director of social media. So when you see that on Facebook, on Twitter, that he has reposted the show, that is Dave that does that. And thank you, Dave. Now, today's song is pretty interesting. On the back jacket of the deluxe CD here, it says Sundown, which is the song that we're going to cover today, is listed as an alternative version, which is strange because it appears nowhere else and on no other CD version I can find. So I thought that was interesting. I dug into the book, and it really doesn't get any better. It just says that it was an unused track that was recorded during the High and Mighty session. So I'm going to assume that was a misprint on the alternative version because it doesn't seem to match anything else. So interesting. It could be maybe there is something out there I wasn't able to find. But in any case, that's where we're at. So this is a bonus track not issued with the album. And let's just dig into Sundown by Uriah Heep from the album High and Mighty. Okay, right off the bat, I've just got to jump in and say that was a kick-ass drum lick. Loved that. You don't hear a lot of cowbell from Lee Kerslake on these albums, so that was kind of nice. Wasn't really sure where it was going. It sounded almost like maybe it was headed towards a cover of Day Tripper, but no, not at all. Really cool lick, and then a little sound effect. It sounds like guitars, and let's see where it goes from here. Well, I love when we have guitars that come like that in the beginning of this section. Just adds a little bit of color and flavor to it. It's not really a solo. It's just a nice lead in, but it kind of warms up everything right before the vocals start in. The mix on this is really good. The drums aren't overpowering the vocals. Everything just seems to be sitting very well in the right place. It's funny how some of these demo and unreleased songs actually sound better to me than how it sounded on the album. And again, I'm listening to the remastered version, so it could be because of that. I have to take that into account. I'm not listening to the actual original album release version. So that all being said, of course, great strong vocal, but everything just sounds so good in the mix. Now onto the effect that they're using on the vocals here. What this is you have to take the audio for the vocals and you reverse it. You put reverb on it so that the reverb tail starts before, so it'll be after the vocal, which would be before it starts when you flip it back over and play it in the right order and you unreverse it. So it gives you that reverb before the vocals. It's a really cool effect. It can be really nice and warm like it sounds in this song, or it can be really just cold and haunting. All depends on how you work it, but I really like the way it sounds on this. It's an interesting choice, but it really works for this song. Okay, so before we get into the solo that I hear is coming, and I've never heard this song before, so this is a first run for me. Some really interesting effects going on underneath the vocals. Upon first hearing, kind of clouded it in some points, kind of enhanced it in others. I would imagine it's something that after I've heard it a couple times, I'd probably just get used to it, and it wouldn't really be a big deal. But that's the thing. When you write a song and you rehearse it over and over and over, you do a few different takes in the studio, and then the engineer layers it together. You don't necessarily think about how the final sound is going to be. I mean, the engineer should be focusing on that more than the band. But you might not think about there's too many things layered, or maybe we should space them out a little more so that they're all clear. You kind of just get used to what you do, or you just add something in, and it becomes part of the history of the song. So it's easy to kind of lose that perspective of initial hearing along the way, because you get used to it, through the rehearsals and the recording. And then if you're listening in on the mix, pass after pass after pass, like your ears just stop hearing some of that stuff, which is why it really takes a special kind of person to be an audio engineer. I'm not saying that because I'm an audio engineer. I'm saying that because it really takes somebody who can focus, who can hear a song 60 times in a day and still hear the little nuances in it, still hear, the subtleties of the changes that they've made, can keep that perspective of making sure that they haven't buried something that they worked on 2 hours ago on changes they've just made. So it really does take a certain kind of focus and mindset and ear and skill level to be good at being an audio engineer. When you get up into the high charts, like people that work on, say, Britney Spears stuff, they might spend an entire day on one song. Whereas, I would say probably 2 or 3 songs in a day would be about right for an engineer. They may not have done it that way, but I would say that would be right, at least for me and some of the people that I know. Some people can mix a whole album in a day. Like if you've got a consistent recording, once you mix the first song, everything else follows suit, except for, maybe the subtleties, or a solo has to come up here or there. So, it all just depends on the engineer. Sometimes you have engineers that just come in and do the mix and the mastering. It's done all different ways. But for same thing like this, it really is easy to lose the layers a little bit. So it does sound a little bit muddy in those sections, but I like what's going on in those sections. A little bit of panning maybe could have helped clarify that a little bit too. Everything kind of they all seem to be like in the center to me. So maybe moving one a little bit to the left and another a little to the right in those layers might have given a little bit of separation to clarify what was going on. But overall, the song's pretty cool. It's pretty happy. It's got a good beat. Everybody seems really tight on it. The performance is great. No, I want more solo, damn it. That was way too short. It was going in a cool direction. I like what I was hearing. And it just got cut off. But hopefully, we still have plenty of song left. We're about 1:24 in. Song track is 3:21. So we've got a little ways to go. And hopefully there will be some more solo, because I like that. Okay, this is getting weird. So we have a keyboard solo that's buried way in the back. We had what I was hoping was a guitar solo playing over that, but that stopped. And the mix is now getting pretty unbalanced. Like, it's okay to have keyboards in the back if they're just playing a supportive role, but it sounds like he's doing a solo now. So that should come up to the front a little bit more. That little guitar lick should have been in the back as more supportive, because it was like it started and stopped. It's kind of like they just found tracks on the tape and said, let's just run it all. Because the more I think about it, it sounds like it's two separate vocal tracks, and they just left both channels open in the mix and said, here's everything that they did. Instead of doing two recordings and putting it on the CD, we're just going to let it all fly in this one. So I'm kind of getting the alternative version. Maybe they just left the regular version off of the CD and only put the alternative version on. I don't know. This is the first time I've heard anything like this on any of these albums so far. And the whole thing is just kind of weird.
Sundown, give me some strength. I know I can't go it alone. Sundown, lend me a strength. Give me a chance to come home. Sundown, give me some strength. I know I can't make it alone. Sundown, lend me some strength. Give me a chance to come home. Sundown, give me some strength. I know I can't make it alone.
So from the part that they went into that strange solo section, they put a little bit of a slap back on the drums, kind of made it a little bit ethereal because they put it on everything. They didn't just put it on the kick or the snare or anything. I mean, the cowbell had it too. Now he's playing more on the cymbals. So now again, drums are starting to drown things out a little bit, but I can still clearly hear the rhythm guitar that's being played very nicely, accenting the song. That's great. The keyboard, the Hammond on there is pretty far back in the mix, so I can only make out little bits of it. Bass is a little bit more dominant, but at least we can hear the vocals cutting through reasonably well. I mean, we can still get enough clarity out of them to know what's going on there.
Sundown, lend me your strength. Give me a chance to come home. I wanna come home. Give me your strength. I know I must go it alone. Sundown, lend me your strength. Give me a chance to come
Wow, that it's such a bizarre situation that we have here. Yet at the same time, I really like the song, and I kind of feel like it was only 2.5 minutes instead of 3.5 minutes. It just went by so fast. And even though it was somewhat repetitive, there were a lot of cool parts in there. A lot of things that I felt were kind of maybe in develop or maybe scratch tracks that were played during the mix. But in any case, yeah, it's a cool song. I could see why it wasn't on the album, but at the same point, I'm glad that I got to hear it because I think there's some good stuff in there. Really would have loved another guitar solo section, though, to be quite honest. I really like where that was heading, and it was just over so quick that I thought we could use some more. But, that's just me, and it's Monday, and that's how I feel. Well, it's actually like, I don't know, what is it, Wednesday, Thursday night for me. I don't even know anymore, but no, I'm okay to drive, really, I swear to God. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's Sundown. They did Sunrise on the Magician's Birthday album, so they did Sundown on High and Mighty. Cool track, well worth listening to, well worth checking out. I don't feel like I want that part of my life back. I think it was well spent. So that is the show for today, guys. Kind of a shorter one for a Monday, but it's a short song, and it went really fast. So great job, Uriah Heep. Great stuff, guys. And I forgot to mention at the top of the show, if you go to the website, scotthaskin.com, click on the Uriah Heep podcast link. There is a link to the, the ballot, I guess, where you could sign up to have Uriah Heep inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Ohio. That is something that would be really cool for the band if that happened, and well-deserved. A lot of their counterparts have been put in there. And these guys have sold, 400 million records? I mean, for crying out loud, they should be in the Hall of Fame. That's ridiculous. And my politics on the Hall of Fame aside, it would really be nice to see Uriah Heep recognized in there. I'm sure a lot of the fans would love that, as well as the band. So go click that link, sign up if you haven't already. And most importantly, help spread the word, because that makes a big difference. So obviously, it being almost the end of April, we're past the ballots for 2021. So we're working on 2022. Got time, but you know what? That time's going to go fast. So let's get signed up and help the band get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Ohio. That is our show for today, guys. We'll be back tomorrow for the final track on the High and Mighty album. And I hope that you guys have a great Monday. See you tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!